In this video, I'll be going over the control and the UI components. So, as you can initially see here on the game screen, every single UI element is up and ready to be used. All of them disappear when you start playing the game. This is due to the in-game UI. I thought I just had it open then. It essentially gets some very key components, but the most important part, there's some identifying scripts called submenu and top menu, which are literally nothing. They have no functionality to them, but they're used as identifiers because we can use get components and children to go through the whole UI and pick out game objects which have this on them. The reason this is done, because if we want something disabled when we first initially launch it, we would tag it with submenus, because this was initially made for the main menu. So this is to do with how you would use buttons to progress through a UI, enable and start disabling certain elements. And also it's nice so you can kind of have the game unpaused, work on the UI, and not have to disable everything before you have to play it and see if they work. You kind of just throw it in, and then the use of these submenus will default these to be turned off when the game starts. The in-game UI also handles pausing. It's pretty much just set the timescale to 0, enable the pause menu, and in the pause menu there's two buttons, which is just resume a main menu, and if you hit resume it sets the timescale back to 0 and sets that game object to be false. So the main concept of the in-game UI is now covered. Let's go into more detail about certain elements of it. So in the top right is the minimap. So this is a camera on the player looking straight down. So this is done so the player can, see certain drops which are near them. And also certain enemies, if they have the minimap marker above them, which they will do. So, the way that we don't show everything, because if we showed everything it would be pretty messy and not really reflective of a good UI. It's just another camera looking down if it's not selective on what it shows. So the only thing we make it show is stuff marked minimap, which in the case are these two little spheres here, which are representative of the player and a pickup. But we still need some other things to make the UI, sorry, not the UI, the minimap a bit more complete, which is we need the ground, because we kind of need to know bearings. So hopefully that's just a visual bug. Minimap, main and minimap. There we go. For some reason that didn't apply the layer. So the main and minimap mask is pretty much as it is self-explanatory. It's just objects which can be seen in the main camera and in the minimap camera. So whereas in the main camera you can't see these spheres, but in the minimap you can. So now in the bottom right is the weapon, along with the health. As you can see, when we start it up, most of the UI disappears. This is to do with the submenus, but also the initial state of the character, because the character does not have a gun when they spawn in. They can do. There's code in place so you can apply a gun to the character, then it will then find that gun and apply it as if you just picked it up. Excuse my sniffling, I'm starting to become a bit under the weather. So when you pick it up, you can see the pistol name as well as the current ammo, as well as the image of the bullet. appeared. So when you drop them, they disappear. When you pick it up, you pick them up. So the reason the bullet images are in, because that was going to be the first identifying factor of what gun you had. But it made more sense to also include the name of the weapon as well. So these are controlled. Here. So this is just a public static reference to itself. I'll come into more detail about this in a second, because most of the UI elements follow this kind of convention of having a public static instance of itself, and then having certain exposed public methods to then do certain things with the UI. So in this case, we want to update the ammo counter when we shoot, and also get rid of the text when we drop it. There's certain edge cases which we have here, which just eliminates small bugs. So the reason I use this convention here, which is the public static instance of itself for the UI, is because UI elements in themselves can be static. Because they don't really move, there's only going to be one instance of them. In most scenarios, why would you have two or more UI elements based on ammo? But the reason I can't initially declare this as a static class, or just be outright static, is because it needs a link to mono behavior, which needs an object reference of a component, which is what this is. So this is kind of like a small trick that I use to kind of get a public static instance of. So I can use this UI element as if it was a public static instance, but without actually having, well, on the back not really being public static, because it still needs to be connected to Unity. So, just to give an idea how this is called and referenced. So this is when the player fires. So after they fire, we just call the ammo UI, get the instance of it. This lets us get the public variables, such as public void. Where did that go? Base gun, there it is. And then it just calls this method, which in this case just does this. The reason I choose to make the whole instance of this ammo UI class static and not just the methods, because even if it was the methods, like this, you'd see you get errors because the things that I'm trying to call and manipulate are not static instances themselves. So using public static, or instance of the whole class, allows a very easy use of pretty much everything inside that class, without having to worry about having what's static, what isn't static. This convention follows most UI elements. As you can tell, some have more code than others. This is to do with what they specifically do. So the reload UI, it's the same thing, just enable disable an image. Same with the out of ammo, same with the low health. So, same with the kill UI, which is essentially just incrementing variable, but it's not stored in here, it's in the statistics, which I'll be getting to in a later video. So with the kill combo UI, as we saw in the last video, I loaded things in through code in assets. This is where some things are loaded into. These are the sprites for depending on how many successive kills the player has. Essentially, when the player kills, the counter goes up and then slowly decreases over time. Depending on the current kill combo, it displays a different image. That's essentially what this does. No real fancy code. So let's demonstrate this in action. So I've killed 2, I've got double kill, triple kill, quad kill, multi-kill. So the kills go down about 1 a second. So at the moment, because I've edited this gun to be very quick and easy to kill, I can kill them in one shot with relative ease. So also it takes into account if you start to kill people after a certain decrement of the kill counter has actually happened. So if you go to triple, double, if you kill again, it goes back up to triple. So you're not going up to multi-kill, then if you do nothing it all disappears. You have the chance to keep that combo up. And as I said before, the reload UI is just enabling and disabling a sprite based on a certain case. So the UI element would be being called from the base gun class and detecting that there's no ammo in the gun, and then it would say display this image. Then once we do reload, the image disappears. So I get rid of all my ammo. As we can see here, it says out of ammo. I really should have shot one of those guys first. Yeah, there's a pistol, so let's quickly get rid of all of my ammo. So these checks also take into account use cases like this. I've got currently no ammo in my gun, but instead of out of ammo, when I do pick up ammo, it changes on out of ammo just to prompt me to reload. That's it for controlling UI elements. In the next video I'll be going into more detail about the main menu. Whilst it's still UI elements, it's a lot more simpler because I'll explain it in the next video.